Maintaining a healthy weight is an important part of our health. With September being Childhood Obesity Awareness Month, the popular question is, how do we know what weight is healthy for our children? How can parents know if their child is healthy? Is there a type of feeding strategy that helps children maintain a healthy weight that is right for them? How much does exercise play a role? Today we'll answer all of these questions and more. I'm Lindsay Senevic, registered dietitian, nutritionist, and family nutrition specialist, and this is Parent Savers, episode 72.
Faster than a speeding toddler.
Sit still for just a minute.
Can soothe boo-boos with a gentle kiss.
Would you get down from there?
Able to clean poopy bottoms in a single swipe.
Oh, what did you eat?
Turning frazzled mommies and daddies into procreators of peace and harmony.
Ah, quit touching me.
It's Parent Savers, empowering new parents everywhere.
Welcome back, everybody, once again to another episode of Parent Savers, broadcasting from the Birth Education Center of San Diego. Parent Savers is your weekly online, on-the-go support group for parents of newborns, infants, and toddlers. I'm your host, John O'Reilly, and thanks again to all of our loyal listeners who listen to us every week and submit great questions and comments via our Facebook and Twitter feeds and our social media channels. Our Parent Savers Club members get special bonus content after each new show, plus special giveaways and discounts. And for those of you who may not know, we've also recently unlocked all of our archives. So now everyone, members and non-members alike, get access to every single Parent Savers episode ever released, as well as every Preggy Pals and Boob Group episode as well. So make sure to reach back in the archive and find the topic that's interesting to you and give us a listen. You can also subscribe to our monthly Parent Savers newsletter for a chance to win a membership to our club each month. And another way for you to stay connected, and you really should do this if you're a regular listener, is by downloading our free Parent Savers app, which is available in the Android and iTunes marketplace. That way you get the shows automatically when they are released, usually on Wednesdays. I'm joined in studio today by a few parents as well as our expert, and of course the lovely producer, Erin. Hello. So let's go around so we know who's having the conversation, so we know who's in the room.
My name's Colin Reed. I'm 27 years old. I work in airline catering, and I have one son named Constantine.
Nice. And Constantine's 3?
3 months.
3 months.
He's a little baby.
I thought you said 3 before. Oh,
so
man.
Did I didn't realize it was 3 months. No wonder you're drinking that caffeinated beverage over there.
Nice. Nicole?
Hi, my name is Nicole DeLine, and I do art design and architecture, and I have a 3-year-old boy,
All right.
Gavin.
Nice.
Oh, hey, yeah, I'm Erin Esteves, a producer, OG Mamacita. I have one little boy, 23 months. And growing fast.
Nice. And Erin is manning our social media account, so use the hashtag ParentSaversVP on Twitter, or make sure to follow us on our Facebook page where we ask questions leading up to the shows so you can participate and maybe get your question read during our taping. And I'm your host, John O'Reilly. I have 3 boys, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So I think that brings the total to a 0-year-old, 2 2-year-olds, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old, and they're all boys in this room for the panelists today.
Oh, wow.
So hopefully some of our virtual panelists will give us the girl perspective as well. And then Lindsay is our expert.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist in San Diego. I own a practice where I work with families with child feeding challenges, and I also consult for a Head Start agency in the area. I'm really happy to be here.
Nice. Well, thanks for joining us. Before we start today's show, we're going to do a news headline segment, and this is where we look at stories that were recently in the news that would be of interest to parents. And today, we've got one called Which is Worse, Where This Boy Peed or the Reaction That He's Getting? And so there's this picture, and we have it on our website, but it's basically of this, might be a grandma, might be a mom, in a mall holding her son up on a trash can in the middle of the mall. And he's peeing right in the trash can with his pants down. He's probably about 2 years old, and it was snapped by someone with an iPhone camera. And so this is from Baby Center. Let's be honest, potty training can be a nightmare. It's that in-between place where you've committed to the diaper, but your child hasn't quite mastered the art of holding it for more than 5 seconds. I can't even tell you how many times I've raced through the mall in a full-on sprint with a 3-year-old who just said, I have to go pee in my arms. But one mom in British Columbia skipped the mad dash and instead just held her toddler above the garbage can in the middle of the mall, pulling down his pants and letting him aim right into the trash. Somebody snapped the picture, and then it was actually met with some outrage on groups like Reddit, like, what the heck's going on with this kid? But what is your guys' reaction to seeing this kid peeing in the trash can?
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I have traveled throughout Europe and Mexico, and I think it's a cultural thing, because you would be surprised at the positions and the locations that I have seen parents allow their children to relieve themselves. So, as far as I'm concerned, she aimed for the trash can.
Good job.
No one's going to slip in it. Mm-hmm. It's all good.
Right.
I think there's no problem with it at all. Anybody who's making a problem is the problem.
Well, right.
Well
I think
said.
I think and I think that maybe a lot of the people that might have an issue with it haven't necessarily been through potty training. Mm-hmm. But I mean, is that fair too? Like, so we're all on this side of it saying, "Oh yeah, like I know, like my kids have gone pee in some crazy places." But, is that right just because we've dealt with it that other people don't? People don't necessarily want to see a little kid going pee in a trash can.
Yeah, well, you know what? I don't want to see your pants that low either. You know what I mean? So there.
No, yeah. So to the point. No, and I mean, I agree. And I mean, obviously, if there was time to get to the toilet, I think that would have been the preferable avenue. But clearly, there wasn't. And I don't think that this woman's going out of her way to find trash cans for her 2-year-old to pee in.
Right. It was a better option than in his pants and on his shoes.
And it's better than the fountain.
Hello.
In the mall as well.
I'm afraid that occurred to you.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I think that there's probably some bush options in the mall that might have worked too. But,
a plant.
Oh, that was out loud.
A rubber tree.
Sorry about that. All right. Anyway, check out this picture on our website. We'll make sure to post this to Facebook as well, and let us know what you think. Today's topic on Parent Savers is how to help your child maintain a healthy weight. We're talking about this topic as part of Childhood Obesity Awareness Month, which is September, and so it's the middle of September now as this episode comes out. Today we're talking with Lindsay Stenevec, a registered dietitian who's also the owner of nutritioninstincts.com. She's going to give us some tips and insight about helping keep our kids fit and healthy. So thanks for joining us, Lindsay.
Thanks for having me.
So what is the current prevalence of childhood obesity in the United States?
Well, I think we all at this point have heard a lot about childhood obesity. In the media, it's a very hot topic. We're hearing about it, on the news. We're hearing about it online, and there are a lot of questions that come with it. And it is true that we've seen an increase in the number of children who are overweight and obese, and more specifically, we see in the age group of 6 to 11-year-olds, we've seen an increase from 1980 from about 7% to about 18%, and with adolescents from about 7% to about 18%. So there's definitely a change that we are seeing, and that comes with a lot of questions about why is this, what are the causes, what do we need to be considering as adults, with this change.
Well, what does it mean to be obese? What's the measurement there?
That's a really good question. So right now, it's very common to use something called the body mass index to evaluate someone's size. And when that was originally developed, it was developed to look at large portions of a population. So with the statistics I just gave you, they're looking at large amounts of people, and they're assessing kind of percentages and looking at overall body type trends. For children, we look at it based on their growth charts, and maybe I can talk about that, a little bit more in a minute. For children at the 95th percentile and above, they're considered in the obese category. Now, with that said, when we're working with just individual children as medical professionals and with their children as parents, we want to look at the child as a whole person. And that's just one piece of information that tells us one piece about possibly their health. And we want to consider them as a whole person and look at their health as from a more whole perspective.
But a lot of times the obese label is put on because an average of a large population is here. The child is at this point on the graph.
Right.
And so they're deemed obese.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a way to look at, again, body type. It doesn't give us necessarily a ton of information or really any more information than that.
And so, I mean, there's other things that could factor into the child being that weight, right? I mean, are there, their height or just their overall, the way their body's built, right?
Right. So height and weight are used in the body mass index equation, or BMI. And lots of factors go into why we have the body types that we do. Genetics do play a very large role and predetermine how we're going to grow and carry our weight and things like that. Other factors that a lot of researchers look into are things like environment, family dynamics, feeding dynamics, nutrition, exercise. If the child, this is sometimes surprising for people to hear, but if the child has dieted, things like that.
Oh, got it. Well, how can then we as parents start to figure out what our child's healthy weight is? The chart is one piece of the puzzle, right?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, you want to talk with your doctor about that. So if you have concerns or you have questions, your doctor is a great resource and a starting place. Usually doctors are talking about growth charts with parents from the very beginning. And what we really want to look for is consistency of growth. So really it matters more that we see a child continuing on a consistent growth trend, staying at a similar percentile, and not bouncing around constantly. And those are also good questions for your doctor of what they think based on the growth charts of how things are going. And then furthermore, using where they are in the growth chart to also give them a little bit of information too.
When we say it's an epidemic, it's interesting hearing the statistics at the beginning, because one way to look at it is that, 1 in 5 kids, I guess that's a lot to say that 1 in 5 kids are obese, but it also means that 4 in 5 kids are not, flipping the statistics. But I guess it's the growth that, people are looking at. Do you have any theories as to what's going on, as to why, over the past however many years, the obesity is increasing?
That's such a popular question. And it's so multifactorial. It's not one thing.
Right.
So keeping that in mind, sometimes people will come out with saying, it's nutrition that is the issue and what they're eating is the issue, or it's exercise that is the issue, feeding dynamics that are the issue. But it really can be multifactorial. It depends on a little bit about where that child lives, what the family life is like, what the feeding is like, what foods are available for them, how much opportunity they have to move just like an average kid would want to move.
I guess just thinking about it, just the fact that it's such a more fast-paced life for everyone now than it was even when we were kids. It's just what's easier, and people don't know about nutrition, getting fast food. I mean, I've been in a number of households because of work, seeing parents just giving their kids fast food, McDonald's, for their meal. And, that's bewildering to me. And that's on a regular basis. I mean, I figure the fast-paced life, this is easy. I mean, that must be contributing. And the lack of exercise, kids staying in the house.
Yeah, certainly convenience is absolutely a factor. We'd take our kids to McDonald's. Sorry to
No, I don't mean to be critical.
No, that's okay. And it's funny because, and I'm sorry to call them out specifically. I think it was last weekend. Christina had to work. So I had all 3 boys. We had 3 boys, 6, 4, and 2. And we had a pretty busy morning. I think we did a 5K, actually. And then Christina had to go do something. And so I took the boys to McDonald's. Because there's this great one here. It's got a great play place, and they love it. They go bananas for it. But it was funny because we invited a friend to come, and I ended up chatting up like another dad that was there, and everyone is like, "Yeah, I know. I can't believe that we're at this place." And we have everyone has the guilt about going there.
Right.
But we're all drawn to there. Not all, but a lot of parents are drawn to there.
Right.
For the convenience factors, and they do this like great playground. The kids played for like an hour and a half and loved it.
Well, we did grow up on it, and I mean, I know the menu, of course. I had it too. It's just like we know more now, and I think it doesn't hurt if it's a little bit. But if this is all they're getting, you wake up and give this for breakfast, and that's what they're gonna, spend the day on.
Well, also, I think, we have this kind of like idealized remembrance of our childhood. And while there may not have been fast food the way we see it today on our tables, there were other fast food options that were very frequent as well. It's, Hungry Man, or how many TV dinners did you not eat as a kid? You know what I mean? So I think that there's just a different
Spam. We had some spam.
Yeah, spam.
A few
Woo, baby, salt on a stick.
But you know what?
I think I'm gonna be sick.
I know. No, but I mean, it's the reality.
When you use the word convenience and you justify it with a play place you used the word epidemic earlier, right? Mm-hmm. An epidemic to me is not something that's based so much on responsibility and choice. In a parent, you use rationalizations as to why you go to McDonald's. Maybe you do it once a month or once every 2 months. There's parents who do it 3 times a day, I'm sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand. I guess in my mind, I don't see how we can call something like that an epidemic when it is predicated so heavily on the choice of a parent who rationalizes it using words like convenience.
Well, I think it's important to remember that parents are under a lot of stress. There are a lot of expectations for parents and a lot of expectations when it comes to raising kids, I think. At least that's what I experience when I work with families. And taking a child to McDonald's doesn't automatically mean that you're doing something horrible as a parent. It's not that simple when we're talking about maintaining a healthy weight. I mean, going to McDonald's doesn't automatically mean that child's going to struggle with their weight or that it's going to have an adverse effect on their weight. It doesn't always come down to what they're eating. It comes down to eating as a family and being together and having a positive experience around food. That can demonstrate balance and decrease shame around food. And also you want to decrease that guilt that parents feel when once in a while maybe that's what's going to work for their family. Mm-hmm. That's different than a family that is turning to fast food multiple times a week. Yeah, that's a problem from a nutritional standpoint, but even more so as a medical professional, I'm looking at that and saying, oh, wow, you must be really having a hard time just with feeding in general, with maybe there's a financial issue going on. Maybe there's a confidence issue with cooking in the kitchen and feeling confident with making meals for your family. Like, let's look at kind of what's causing that feeling that you need to turn to outside sources for food on a regular, consistent basis versus feeling confident and comfortable making food at home. And that might be, there might be things that we work on, as a dietitian, and I might even refer them out to other professionals.
I think that leads to my thought on that. A lot of the issues can be solved with planning, and a lot of parents don't know how to plan this stuff out. I mean, a lot of parents, we have fed ourselves pretty poorly, since college or on our own. So I think in finding resources is really important, and being able to reach out to somebody like you to look at how are we creating this food structure in our household.
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought up the word structure, and that is huge for kids, as I'm sure as parents you all know in other areas, especially, but with feeding, structure is so important. Kids need to know that they're going to get regular meals and snacks at somewhat regular times on a daily basis. With food insecure situations, for example, when kids aren't getting that consistent meal offered, or maybe they are running to fast food at random times, like, we're going to get food at some point, honey, but I don't know when, we start to see some eating issues going on for that child. The second they get in front of that food, whatever type of food it is, they feel an urgency sometimes to eat, to a point of feeling very, very full. Because wouldn't we all do that if we didn't know for sure when we were going to be able to have food next? If we were relying on someone else to offer that food, we might, take matters into our own hands and do what we can to avoid feeling overly hungry. And that can happen in lots of family dynamic situations.
I think this is a good point to take a quick break. We'll get into a little more. Let's keep talking about these specifics, because I think this is what the crux of the issue is. Like, all right, we know that we want to keep our kids healthy. So what are ways to help us make more positive choices and go to the play place less, potentially? So we'll talk about feeding and also exercise and some of the other good and bad foods after a quick break. Welcome back, everybody. Today we are talking about helping your child maintain a healthy weight with Lindsay Stenovic, a registered dietitian. Registered?
Yep.
Is that right? Okay, sir. So let's talk more about feeding. We were just talking right before the break about structure. So let's What is like a good structure for kids? What would be a good routine? How do we build snacks into that routine, and what would be times for meals?
Great question. Well, I think it would make sense to start with something called the division of responsibility. And this was something that's kind of originally developed by a woman named Ellen Satter, a therapist and a dietitian. And we've since researched the topic, and there's books out there about it. And it's parents are responsible for what they're feeding their children, when they're feeding their children, and where they're feeding their children. And then children get the responsibility of how much they're going to eat and whether or not they're going to eat. And that can feel really scary for parents sometimes, because they might think, what do you mean my child gets to determine how much,
Right.
he or she is going to eat? What if she just eats to no end? That can sometimes be the first question that I get when we start talking about that. In terms of structure and the way that structure is very important for the division of responsibility. So feeding every few hours or so, and you want to, as a parent, you're the expert in your child, so you want to keep that in mind too. But the idea of that is to allow children to get to a meal or snack mildly hungry, not starving, and also not full. And so with that, we also kind of discourage, to the best of your ability as a parent, to not have the child graze constantly in between, because it can disrupt, their appetite.
But if they're given a choice, they would do that. I feel like at least one of our kids would. I know.
Yeah, I do hear that from parents quite a bit. And as long as they are coming to meal times, getting the choice of how much and whether or not they're going to eat, eventually, we want children to be able to use their hunger and fullness cues. We're all born with the innate ability to self-regulate our eating. And that's very clear, I think, for parents when their children are infants. But I think it becomes less comfortable for them to kind of trust their child as the child grows, because there is so much pressure. There's constant talk about the childhood obesity epidemic. And so parents very naturally think, well, that must mean I need to control how much my child's eating. That must mean I need to monitor very closely. But what we see is when parents do that, it can actually lead to an increase in weight for that child. They start to feel very disconnected from their hunger and fullness cues. So that's a really important piece.
It's interesting because sometimes I feel like the struggle isn't that I'm worried that my kids are going to eat too much. It's that they're not eating enough. I don't understand how they're getting enough energy to do all the other crazy stuff they do when they're eating like 3 bites of their food.
Very good question. Actually, there's a study in 2007 that, you're not alone, because it looked at parent feeding strategies, and about 85% of parents still require their kids to finish everything on their plate, kind of in that Clean the Plate Club. And actually, Marianne Jacobson just wrote a great article on this in the New York Times. I know she was an expert you had on previously. So you're not alone. Again, what we do see when children are told this is how much you get and you need to eat 100% of that, they begin to get the message that what their body's telling them is less important than what someone else is telling them. And they adore their parents. They love their parents. So, of course, they're not going to question that idea, right?
Right.
And it's coming from the best of intentions from that parent as well. We don't want to create more shame for a parent around the process of feeding. But again, what we do see is a decrease in that familiarity with hunger and fullness, which can throw off a child's natural weight.
One of the interesting things, though, I thought was that coming out on Marianne's article, and we had her in, and they actually had her on Good Morning America, but they actually kind of characterized her ideas as outlandish. And in a way, they weren't really that fair to her.
Not at all.
And I think it's really interesting that there's a public backlash against this notion.
They misunderstood what she was, discussing quite a bit. It was pretty frustrating for professionals in the field and for her, I think, to watch that.
Right.
Because they took it as she was saying, let your children eat whatever they want, how much they want, basically whenever they want. And that's definitely not what she's saying. She's using division of responsibility. They use that in fearless feeding as well, where, again, as parents, you have that responsibility of choosing what. You may ask a child, do you want X or Y today? But ultimately, it is your decision as to what you're feeding them. And again, that timing piece, the when piece, is also your responsibility, and a really important part of that responsibility to provide that structure and consistency with the feeding environment, and then also where. So once in a while it might be at McDonald's, and it might be as a family, but also choosing to eat at home as a family as well, when able.
You know, John, my husband has the same issue that you do because he wants to keep feeding Cash, and Cash will say done, done, and he'll want to keep feeding him. And this is my philosophy on it. I have very specific feeding times. You have breakfast, you have lunch, there's a snack, and then there's dinner. There's nothing in between. If you choose not, and yeah, he's not even 2, but if he chooses not to eat any more of his lunch, so be it. I don't think that him knowing what hunger is necessarily a bad thing. If he shows signs of hunger, then I just give him more water. You know, have a drink, move around, distract him, do something, and then, you know, lunch is coming or snack is coming, but you have to wait. And I do that because in my household growing up, food was an entertainment, food was love, and obviously I am not going to starve to death quickly.
Right.
I am famine proof. But I don't want that to be an issue for my son. So as far as I'm concerned, hunger is good. He's going to eat that spinach because he's hungry.
Yeah, that certainly is interesting, and I find too. And obviously, I think we all have control issues, and we all have food issues, like to some extent. It's how we're dealing with them. But our kids definitely eat better when they're hungry. And they'll eat. I don't know if they would eat spinach, but they'll eat. But yeah, maybe if he was hungry.
Well, Cash would rather spinach than chicken McNugget.
Nice. That's
He'll
Gavin
actually
too.
turn those away.
Yeah.
Gavin won't eat a McNugget, and I have offered it to him. I have actually taken him to McDonald's, just to be fair. I just don't
clean, Nicole.
Yeah. You can only get the French fries.
What do you do for healthy snacks? What are some of the things that Gavin likes?
So cucumbers with a little lemon and olive oil, or even plain. Avocados, snap peas, carrots. He likes those cooked a little bit more. Edamame, banana chips. Like, I try and get the healthiest things. I don't completely tell him he's not allowed to have candy. I get dark chocolate. That's my favorite. But no, so I never make it an issue when he does want a sweet. I never make it an issue. I give it to him. But I just make sure he's got a lot of other vegetables and healthy stuff, because I don't want to turn him into someone who's hiding candy in the closet. But one of the first decisions I made about his nutrition was I was never going to force him to eat like the whole meal. I just wasn't, because I know, when you're full, you're full, and I'm glad that he's aware of when he's full. And I sometimes I might, be like, oh, you want one more bite, because I feel like he's still hungry. And he is. He'll take one more or two more bites. But when he's done, he's done. He definitely used to be much more of a grazer. I mean, he is still kind of. But what I started doing, because I noticed he just didn't eat his meal, because I'll do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And he'd have 2 bites of his meal. Dinner, especially, just 2 bites. I'm like, no, I want you to have a full rounded meal. But so what I started doing is just cutting out the snacks when it gets closer to the meal. But I definitely have snacks available during the day. And I feel like if it's cucumbers, and he's on peppers right now. He likes bell peppers and hummus.
Nice.
And the other thing about that is he's a really good vegetable eater, but it could just be his taste buds. I ate a ton of different stuff when I was pregnant. But I feel like it's what you make available to them when they're little. That's what he knows. He does prefer fruit and healthy stuff over the nuggets and the candy, because that's what he was given. I mean, for sweets, it's raspberries and blueberries, and he feels like that's a treat for him. Or sometimes, when he's asking me for pink yogurt because he's gotten it somewhere else, like a really sugary fruit yogurt, I'll take some frozen fruit and mix it with the plain yogurt or the vanilla yogurt, just so I know it's a little lower in sugar and it's actually fresh fruit. And then he's happy that he has his pink yogurt. So I don't deny him things. I mean, there are times when I'll say, oh, how could you want to eat that? That's so gross. But, just teasing him. That's what my father used to do to me, I guess. But I try and keep it balanced.
What about drinks? I think there's obvious red flag drinks that, and that might be another thing that contributes to obesity. I mean, I remember going out to dinner with some friends, and I think that he was like not even 2 years old, or around 2 years old, and the dad ordered a Diet Coke for him. And even I can be pretty lax on, like, like I said, we go to McDonald's or whatever, but like
It's a treat.
even we were like, wow, like that's pretty young to be introducing like that, or straight synthetic sugars. But aside from that, we have one of our kids that loves drinking milk. Like, is that an okay thing? Is there a limit? Or, what are some good drinks? Or is it just push water on them constantly? And does water have other benefits in keeping them healthy too?
Well, water is certainly an important beverage to have around and available to kids and adults, throughout the day. There aren't necessarily very specific recommendations for fluids for the day for a child, but young children need at least about 1 liter per day. In terms of, some of the sugary drinks, not having those around often is helpful for their nutrition and helpful for them regulating their hunger and fullness as well. And when it comes to milk, offering that with meal times or as part of a snack is great. When we see a lot of issues with milk is when, say, young kids are still walking around throughout the day drinking milk kind of in between meals and snacks, and we're seeing issues with cavities when it comes to that. We're seeing issues with, just consuming that on a regular basis and it disrupting their appetite. And it can also lead to iron issues for the child. So too much milk can affect iron issues because of the calcium.
I'm telling you, I want to do an episode on milk because I think that milk, that they've done a very good job of making people feel like you need to drink milk constantly, and it's an awesome thing. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of
Nicole shaking her head.
Potential things going afterwards. I think that could be a good future episode.
It can be a great nutritional source for children, especially when they are learning to kind of get familiar with different types of foods, and they're progressing in terms of what fruits and veggies taste good to them and what meats taste good to them and things like that. It's a great, acceptable and taste-wise source of great nutrients. But again, anything in excess can end up being an issue.
Like even too much fruit. Right, can be like you think, fruit, great thing, but it's possible to have too much fruit, right?
Well, it's possible to have too much of any food, really. Carrots, carrot cake, fruit, strawberry shortcake, whatever. It is possible, and then remembering that division of responsibility and doing that structural feeding pattern and low pressure feeding environment, like you were referencing. Really allows children with whatever they're being offered to really regulate their intake. So if you've ever noticed a child take a bite of an apple and put it down and say, I'm done, or take a bite of a birthday cake and say, I think I'm done, I'm going to go play now, they're very much more in tune with their bodies and kind of how they feel and what they need, more so than adults a lot of the time.
I want to cover off on exercise a bit too, so we can wrap up any other tips you might have or specific tips, but also, let's talk a little bit about the role. I know that's not exactly your professional role, but I think that's probably part of a little bit of what you do.
Absolutely, yeah, we talk about that.
What are some, guidelines for exercise and maybe creative ways to help kids exercise as well as maybe if you have any other tips on nutrition you'll still want to add as we wrap up the conversation?
Well, children are designed to move, and so are adults. As humans, we are just, like I said, designed to move. The kind of minute recommendation out there is to at least get an hour of play a day. I think probably the most important part of that is play. Because adults are used to going to the gym for their movement. Sometimes they'll think, well, maybe I need to take my child to the gym if they haven't taken up any sports yet or anything like that. And I guess for some children, to a certain extent, it might be okay depending on their age. But really, we're always talking about fun and enjoyable movement. And that goes for adults too, and role modeling. So instead of saying, hey, Susie, you need to make sure you go out and play for an hour, kids don't necessarily, they might not respond to that. They might be doing it just to please you, but maybe saying, let's go to the park, let's play around, let's take the ball out to the court, and, doing something fun, or giving them opportunities with friends to play, or also when they're old enough, enrolling them in different sports, because that can increase their self-esteem and confidence with moving their body too.
Even just like a walk around the neighborhood saying, let's go look for the colors of the rainbow around the neighborhood.
Absolutely. I love that.
It's engaging them and getting them to move.
I think that for my son, when he does want to stay in the house and not go out, I mean, he usually is pretty active, but recently he's gotten addicted to the iPad and YouTube. It's ridiculous. And I'm like, oh no, he'll say to me, no, Mama, I want to stay in the house. I'm like, no. So what I really realize is I need to do it with them, period. So just having the patience of putting my stuff aside and okay, we're going.
Yeah.
And so basically I have to do it with him, and he's perfectly happy to do it then.
I mean, it's one of those things that once you get them out and in nature, outside moving around, they're totally happy. But if they have a choice between, holding on to the iPad or, hey, let's go do anything else in the world, even if it's the awesomest thing ever. A lot of times they might even they're so tied into what they're doing
at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's misdirection and distraction a lot for toddlers, and then once they're in it, they're happier.
And for me, getting Cassius active, it's all very self-serving because the child sleeps so well. He will sleep for hours straight through the night, which is what I need desperately. So let's go for a swim, and we just get him exhausted. Yeah. So it's completely self-serving.
Right.
I admit it.
The technology thing you bring up is interesting too, because we never had those things when I was a kid. We didn't have iPhones and iPads, and what comes to mind is how culture interacts with the propensity for obesity. And the reason I bring that up, is because my wife is from Eastern Europe, a former Soviet state, where oftentimes what you ate then was based on what your family could produce, and where you went was based on how quickly you could walk there. And so the culture that I live in, let me hide my love handles, is very much based on that idea. We go out to eat, we indulge. But her culture of thriftiness and that sort of thing has really just permeated the entire household. And I often wonder how, in America we have these notions of obesity, but how that interacts based on the culture of the house.
Absolutely. Environment, culture definitely play a role. And probably one thing to mention, even though we're talking about maintaining a healthy weight, really the more important thing is maintaining our health. We want to always bring it back to health. And what kind of lifestyle is going to be most conducive to a healthy, existence for our children and for us, because everybody comes in a different shape and size, and we want to respect that too.
All right, any other points that we didn't cover off on that you want to make sure to get across about helping kids maintain a healthy weight?
Well, I think one thing I want to make sure that I mention is that for parents, if you feel that you're struggling with your own relationship with food, or just the importance of being aware of your own interaction with food is an important piece. And there's a chapter on that in Fearless Feeding. Ellen Satter has a book that touches on that called Secrets of Feeding a Healthy Family. There are blogs about that, but that's an important piece because we know that does affect our feeding, and similar to what you're talking about in terms of how you were raised affects your feeding, which then can affect your child's eating. And to also help our children in general love their bodies no matter what size they are. They're getting a lot of really serious messaging when it comes to different body types, and it's starting to create something called weight stigma, or that's really been around for a long time. And what we're seeing is that children who are larger, when they get that message, they feel bad. They feel like they're trying to be eliminated. There's a war against people who look like them, basically. That's kind of how they're taking it. And we want to make sure that we're just teaching our kids to love their bodies regardless of their size, or anything else that may or may not make them different, because they're going to take the best care of their bodies when they love their bodies and they feel good about themselves and they have high self-esteem.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Lindsay, and thanks to everyone in the studio, and thanks to everyone for listening as well. For more information about helping your child maintain a healthy weight, you can, or for any of our panelists, or for Lindsay, you can visit the episode page on our website. We've also got a link to nutritioninstincts.com there. This conversation is going to continue for members of our Parent Savers Club with our bonus content. After the show, we're going to talk a little bit more about the height and weight ratios. We touched on them a little bit, but a little more about how they're developed and where they came from. For more information about the Parent Savers Club, visit our website, parentsavers.com.
Hey everyone, this is Sunny. I'm one of the producers on Parent Savers, and today we have a special interview for you. Exa Higgins is joining me, and she is the founder of MommyCon. Now, if you haven't heard of MommyCon, you have to check this out. This is a in-person conference. It's totally blowing up online. There are moms and dads going to this conference from all over the country. They've got lots of different locations, and the focus of it is on natural and organic parenting. So, Exa, tell us a little bit more about MommyCon and why you started it.
Yeah, so MommyCon is a day of education, inspiration, and community building that we bring to cities across the United States. One of our upcoming events is going to be in Los Angeles, California on October 6th. And we're actually looking to set the baby wearing world record at the event with over 1,500 parents in attendance, all wearing their babies.
Okay. So you mentioned the LA event, and this is a pretty big event for you guys, because is it one of the largest venues you guys have been at in the past?
It is, yes. We're really hoping to set this record with 1,500 plus people in attendance. Our last event in Philadelphia had over 500 people at it, and they just keep kind of getting bigger and, better. We love sharing all the knowledge that we've learned as parents and bringing our experts, to the event to then speak on everything from birth to breastfeeding to baby wearing, cloth diapering, car seat safety, and everything in between. So it's definitely going to be big in LA.
Yeah, well, we're excited for it because I know that we're going to go out to that event as well. And if our listeners want to participate, want to get involved with the LA event, how can they do that?
Yes, they can find us on Facebook. We're MommyCon USA if you need to type it into your browser. And then our website is mommy-con.com.
Yeah, and the tickets are really reasonable. This isn't something, as far as the price is concerned, it's not something that's going to, you got to choose between diapers or going to the conference.
Oh, yeah, and we even have a free option. So if parents just want to come out and attend the event, set the world record, it's absolutely free. Otherwise, we have general admission starting at $25.
That's great. And I know not all of our listeners are from Southern California. So you do have these conferences in other cities. So how can people learn about those other opportunities?
Yeah, visit our website, type MommyCon, MOMMYCON into Google. Visit our website at mommy-con.com. Go on, find our community on Facebook of over 18,000 moms all coming together across the country. We're going to Portland in a couple weeks, Philadelphia, LA, Kansas City, Chicago, Austin, and everywhere in between.
Love it. Love it. Okay. But if you are located in the Southern California area and you want to win 2 free tickets to the LA event, you can do that. We are actually doing a raffle copter giveaway with MommyCon. And all you need to do is go to our show website, go under the episodes section, go down to giveaways, and you can enter right there. So Exa, thank you so much for being part of our show today.
Thank you.
That wraps up our show for today. We appreciate you listening to Parent Savers. Don't forget to check out our sister shows Preggy Pals for expecting parents, Boob Group for moms who breastfeeds, and Twin Talks for parents of twins or soon-to-be parents of twins. Next week, we're going to be talking about single parents and the realities of single parenthood. It's going to be an interesting conversation. Some of our panelists in the studio will be joining us as well. So please join us next week for that. This is Parent Savers, empowering new parents.
This has been a New Mommy Media production. The information and material contained in this episode are presented for educational purposes only. Statements and opinions expressed in this episode are not necessarily those of New Mommy Media and should not be considered facts. While such information and materials are believed to be accurate, it is not intended to replace or substitute for professional medical advice or care, and should not be used for diagnosing or treating healthcare problem or disease or prescribing any medication. If you have questions or concerns regarding your physical or mental health or the health of your baby, please seek assistance from a qualified healthcare provider.
Hey, mamas. Don't forget to check out Mighty Moms. It's our online community built for new moms just like you. Not only can you connect with other moms, but you can also join us backstage for special mom-only online events. And you'll also be notified when we're recording, so you can join us as a special guest. Visit our website, newmommymedia.com, and click on the Mighty Moms banner. It's free. That's newmommymedia.com. See you there.